Oh my God, I got to play a show. In 2022, I never thought it would happen again. Hey everybody, it's your old pal Mike. I hope you're happy, healthy, and safe, and welcome back to the channel. This week, I just want to talk. I want to rap with you. I want to put the chair backward and straddle it and act like a cool teacher and talk about what it felt like to play a show again. The last time I played a show was in February of 2020. It was... That show came at the tail end of the West Coast Fellow Robot Tour of the same month. We made our way through nooks and crannies of the West Coast up to Seattle, where I am now, and then back down again and played our triumphant return show in LA on, I think it was the 27th. I think it was that was the last official date. So it has been over 2 years at this point since I took the stage, and the reason, well, I think we can all guess. There's a thing that's been happening for a long time that if I say it, I'll get demonetized and put in YouTube jail. But we all know what it is. We all have experienced it. We all have adjusted our lives. It's been, well, a hell of a lot of fun. I think we can all agree. But when this opportunity to play a show came up, I could not say no. It is for one of my favorite artists, a woman named Bree who goes by the name Divorce Care, and her music is incredible. The lyrics are incisive and brutal and also beautiful. The music feels like all of my favorite late 90s, early 2000s emo college rock bands. There's a lot of Pedro the Lion in there. If you're a fan of that band, you will enjoy what Bree is putting out. And her record is coming out, I think, sometime in the summer-ish. I will confirm that, but it's really good. I've been working for a few weeks on the songs off of the rough mixes from the record, and I am a huge fan. And so the chance to play with her via my good friend CJ, who I've talked about in the channel before. CJ has a great Twitch channel that you should check out. Links in the description below. It was just a lovely little chance meeting, and I'm so pleased that I got to contribute to Bree's songs in a live context. When it comes to learning songs for a sub-in gig like this, I'm a fairly quick learner, usually. The trick with learning Bree's songs was that these were rough mixes, and so some of the important guitar parts that I needed to figure out were not as audible as they will be on the final mixes, so I had to depend on CJ, who graciously came over and taught me everything I needed to know, which I then promptly forgot the moment that Bree showed up to run through the set together. So it was a little bit of a learning curve for me, having not done this in so long. Now, no, that's not entirely true. I have contributed tracks for some recordings. I did some Sparta tracks recently that I'm really proud of. I've done some work with my friend Callie Kazoo from LA. I miss you, Callie, you're the best. And so I have been learning songs and contributing tracks to them, but all of that stuff is going straight into my short-term memory. And then the moment I hit send on the tracks, it's gone, it's out of there. So I'll admit that I had to work a little harder this time around, being the first time I've had a gig in so long, to get these songs into my long-term memory, into that good place where I don't have to think about the songs while I'm playing them. You know what I mean? If you're a musician, I'm sure that you've done this before, where you hit that point with a song where you're familiar enough and your mind starts drifting, but your hands are still doing the thing. And that's the place where I like to live. I like that performance to be organic. I like the muscle memory to kick in, but I also like what happens when you know a piece so deeply that you're able to just let it flow naturally. And I think I achieved that in our performance. But let's be specific. One of Bree's songs is called Part-Time, and it is a beautiful, heartbreaking story that is perfectly underscored with the music that's happening underneath it. And in that song, there are some sounds that I just plain don't use. It's not that I don't like them, it's that they just don't occur to me ever, even though they're right there on my DL4, mainly reverse delay. Reverse delay is a sound wherein the pedal takes what you're playing and flips it end to end. And so, yes, there was a learning curve for learning the songs, but also with that sound, which I don't use. Having to anticipate the song, having to anticipate where my parts need to fit within the song, that was a lot. It took me a while to feel comfortable on that, and I think I got there, but you be the judge. Take a listen. Coming back to the idea of making a thing my own, Bree plays a solo in this song that I think is fantastic the way that she plays it. It is earnest and honest and sincere. It is her through and through. And if you get to know Bree, you hear that solo and you go, that's Bree. However, I am not Bree, and I want to play things in only an idiomatic manner that I can. I have my own sound, I have my own sense of timing and rhythm and flourishes that make my playing uniquely my own. And it was a bit of a struggle, I'll be honest, because when I'm called in for a sub gig, I want so badly to represent the musician's hard work the best way that I can. I want to make sure that I'm doing right by the music and right by the artist. But sometimes that goes out the window when you're in a live context and you start a song and then your brain goes blank and you're like, all right, let's see what happens. So when I played this solo live, there was a lot of wiggly vibrato arm that's very me. There's a little bit of tasteful delay underpinning what I'm playing. There are note choices that I make that are different from the recorded version of the solo that add sort of a vocal quality, sort of a moody, bluesy quality that just kind of comes naturally. So when I took that solo, thrusters engaged, there's no going back now, mistakes will happen. I think I came up with something that was really good and that I'm really proud of. And ever since the show, I have been listening back to some of the recordings my wife took on her phone and just finding myself tickled by what I came up with, the sense of melody that I have, the unique voice that I have, even my guitar sound.
Full-time baby, thought that you would save me from life I live without you. Part-time lover, pull me in your covers, only for a moment or two. My full-time baby, thought that you would save me from life I live without you. Stop talking, everything gets cold. Isn't that what you wanted? From afar we'll watch each other grow.
Let's talk about the gear, actually. My guitar sound, I'm very pleased with, and it worked out great. I had to use my Sparkle Jaguar. I have no idea what it was inside me that was so insistent on that guitar, but it just felt like the right thing to use. And plus I love sparkly guitars, so knowing that I was going to be bathed in stage lights for the first time in a long time, I think maybe subconsciously I was like, hell yes, I want to use the sparkle guitar. I want to look pretty on stage, and I think we got there. But that guitar actually worked out really, really well for the tunes. Bree is using a Telecaster and an AC-15, so her sound is very bright, very present. And so what I like to do as soon as I get into a band context is I look at the gear being used and I try to achieve counterpoint to it. It's something I learned from an interview with Mike Campbell from Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers years ago, where he talked about doing the opposite of what Tom Petty was doing. If Tom was using a bright guitar into a dark amp, he'd flip that. He'd use a dark guitar into a bright amp. And so when I walked in and I saw that Bree was using a Telecaster and an AC-15, I thought, what are my chunkier instruments? What are the instruments with a little bit of a darker voice that I can use to completely balance out our tonal spectrum? Because when I go and see a band and both guitarists are using the exact same gear with relatively the same settings, everything kind of feels like it lives up here and there's not a lot of meat on those bones. So I like to make sure that I've got some meat. And so I saw what Bree was using and I said, I'm gonna use my Jaguar and I'm gonna use my Strange Audio Lux Plus, which you have seen on the channel before. That amp was made specifically for me with a 15-inch speaker and a lot more low end and a lot less treble than the stock model, and I could not be happier with my little 15-watt dynamo. It is such a good amp. It's bright and colorful, but it just has a sound. It has my sound. I love it so much. And I'm pleased to say that in rehearsal, it worked out great. The combination of her bright sound and my darker, moodier, kind of grittier, honky sound, they melded together beautifully, and I think we made a really beautiful noise together. I don't know if you've noticed these pickups sitting here. This is a set by EP Custom, who were gracious enough to send me a brand new set right before the gig. In fact, it showed up the day of rehearsal. And the reason I asked for a new set was because they've made some changes lately in the way they wind their pickups using a little bit of a different wire. And they were telling me that there's a lot more mid-range content, and I said, that's right up my alley. That's the thing that I like. So I swapped the neck pickup. This original neck, even at the appropriate height, was feeling a little bit lost compared to the very hot bridge pickup in that Jaguar. I think it measures at 7.48, which is absurdly hot for a Jag, a vintage style Jag at least. So this thing at 6.3 kind of wasn't holding up, and when I would switch to the neck only, it was nice and round, but the definition just wasn't there. So I'm happy to say that the 6.2 Formvar wire, I think it's Formvar wire that they're using now, has a lot more mids to it. It's present, it stands out more, and it balanced beautifully. I did not get around to swapping in the new Formvar bridge pickup because I was afraid that I was going to lose a little bit of output with it, but I don't think it's actually going to be the case. I just didn't want to change too much before the show. Another change that I made to the Jaguar is I installed a polished mastery vibrato instead of the brushed one, the old one that I have from when Woody was just first designing and testing those units. Both are great. I have no complaints about either of them. It's just that the polished variety goes a lot better on a Jaguar with its chrome-plated plates. So that was a change. No big deal, just felt like doing it finally. What else changed? Oh, I use the same pedal board that I always use on this channel, you know, that big one with, I think, 16 pedals on it. Almost entirely unchanged, except for one. I swapped out my trusty Benson Germanium Fuzz, amazing pedal, I love it. But in its place went the Rude Tech Falcondrive made for my good friend Ian. You may know him as Eagle Bones from the Aquabats. They sent one up a while back and I am so smitten with it. It is a fantastic little pedal that incorporates two different circuits that I never really enjoyed all that much, being the SD1 and the DS1. Boss makes great pedals. Not saying they don't, but they have never worked for me. I don't know what Rude Tech did to these, but they are modded in such a way is that I just can't get enough of them. So that went on the board as a sort of like a more channel. Think of it like an amp. I've got my Fuck Overdrive, which is my main basic drive sound, kind of mild, but still gritty. And I was using the Falcondrive to slam that in the front end and really bring the saturation level up, and it worked beautifully. I did intend to put the DL4 Mark II on my board, but I spent so long looking for my 3M dual lock, that stuff that never comes off. I have a stash of it, couldn't remember where I put it. And by the time I did find it, I was like, oh no, I have to rebuild my presets. It was a whole thing. So the DL4 Mark II is gonna go on the board. I just stuck with my trusty sparkly DL4. Oh, and another first for this show. The American Pro 2 was my second guitar, and it worked out great. I've made some changes to it. It is wearing a Curtis Novak JM90 in the neck and a JM180 in the bridge, so I can still get higher output whenever I need it. And it's also wearing that Deco Boom guard. It looks great. I found the perfect strap for it, one of my old Mother Marys. Incidentally, if you are looking for straps, cases, cool fuzz pedals, click the link in the description down below. Hit up Mother Mary. They are a fantastic company. I can't say enough nice things about them. So for the American Pro 2, what I really needed in a second guitar was one that lived in drop D, which is, it's possible. I could have done it on the Jaguar, but I would have had to retune a lot, and that's no good for a set. So to smooth that transition, I swapped over to the Pro 2 in drop D, and it sounded huge. It was loud and authoritative and girthy, and those Novak pickups, oh my God, what a change. It's lighter than the Jaguar, believe it or not, and yeah, it was the perfect second guitar. When we do another show, 24th, Sunset, I may, in fact, use it again. So being that this was my first show in over 2 years, there are a lot of things about playing a show that I feel like I maybe forgot in the interim. One of those things was, a good list of questions that you should ask before you play a show. You unfurl your questions and you say, what are the answers to these, venue owner? One such question that I completely forgot to ask was, what's the sound system like? What's the reinforcement like? Will we be mic'd? And these are all very important things that completely left my mind, and I may have actually brought the wrong amp for the gig. Like I said, the Strange Audio, my ideal sound. I love it so much, but when we got there, I realized we have a loud drummer, and we are in an unfinished concrete box, but with the 15 watts of the Strange Audio, I couldn't quite keep up with everything going on, and as a result, I think I was a little bit quiet. I am told that in the middle of the room, I angled my amp in for some reason. I don't know why I did that. That was a mistake too. But I'm told that we were well balanced, perfectly balanced in the words of one concert goer, so thank you for that. But still, if I had known that we were not going to be mic'd, I would have brought my Satellite Hellion, loudest 25 watts I have ever experienced in my life, and that would have been a much better match, especially with Bree's amp up on a drum case and off the ground and pointed at people's heads, whereas mine was on the ground. I should have been thinking about that ahead of time, but I forgot. There's a lot of things I forgot. I forgot what it was like to be on stage again and have cool moves to do. And I have to be honest with you as well that sometimes I experience some pretty intense stage anxiety. Sometimes before stepping on stage, my chest feels like it's caving in. I get nervous. And over the last 2 years, I have completely forgotten how to deal with that. There's a great interview with Bill Hader where he talks about making friends with it. You shake hands with it. You say, oh, I was wondering when you were going to show up. You make friends with anxiety, and then you're good. And that seems to work really well for me. But again, right before I stepped on stage, I was like, oh my God, I'm playing a show. How do I do this? And yeah, my mind went completely blank. It took a while to psych myself back up. But as protection, I wore my Idols shirt that I got at the show we saw in November. And that band, if you've ever seen them, they put on a tough show. They are loud, they are chaotic, they are fully and fiercely themselves. And so I feel like I wore that show subconsciously as kind of like armor. I'm going out with my boys and I'm gonna be okay. And I think it worked because I felt really good the second we started. absolutely nailed the first song, felt like a badass, absolutely nailed the second song, which is part-time, which I showed you a little bit of. You know, it felt like a cocky bastard. And then the third song, my mind went completely blank and I forgot every single thing I was supposed to do in that song, which was a nice reality check and like, oh yeah, I'm not a god. I am just a guy who sometimes gets a little mixed up. And there's a specific part in the song Animal that I'm supposed to play twice every chorus, and not one of them did I nail it. Not one of them did I play it right. It sucked. Oh, the sound I made when we hit the last note, I feel like I was like, ban oh, like my distaste for my playing was palpable, which is something else I forgot, is that you should laugh off mistakes when you're on stage. You shouldn't dwell on them, but you know, it was my first one back. Give me a break. But that's my advice to you. If you make mistakes on stage, they're funny. Everyone's there to have a good time. People pay to see people believe in themselves, as Kim Gordon said. And yeah, just live in that. So if you make mistakes on stage, it's okay. Everyone's rooting for you. No one goes to a show hoping they fail. If they do, they're very unkind people, and you don't want to be friends with them anyway. Now, there's one thing that happened at this show that I did all the time in the before times. Kind of a staple routine, and it ended up being an enormous mistake at this show. Let me tell you about it. There was a moment at the end of our second to last song. What I did was I took my Jaguar and slammed the headstock down onto the ground, which is something that I do with all of my guitars, because when you're on a certain kind of stage, you know, one made of wood or some kind of material that flexes a little bit, I find put the headstock of the guitar on the stage and it sort of couples the guitar with the loud amp and the drums, and you all of a sudden have this controllable feedback that doesn't really exist any other way. Not the normal ways that we're all used to, where we're standing on stage and rotating or moving around a little bit to find that spot where the guitar starts really going for it. I have always done this. This is a thing that I have done since high school when I was playing Gibsons, and you're not supposed to do that because Gibsons break, right? Not for me. I don't know what I do different, but mine were always fine. So I did it with this Jaguar, not realizing that I had made a crucial error when I assembled it. With ball-ton necks, sometimes it is a very good idea for you to string the guitar up at tension, and at tension, loosen the bolts just a hair of a turn. What this does is if you loosen the bolts, the neck will shift down in its pocket in a way that it often doesn't when you just screw it back together and leave it. This is kind of an insurance policy for a lot of, we shall say, acrobatic guitar players. It keeps the neck centered in the pocket, coupled with the body, and it doesn't move. Once it's there, it's there. I never did that with my Jaguar, so when I slammed the headstock into the ground of a concrete floor, mind you, so it didn't even really do what I was hoping it would do, I slammed it down, and that caused the neck to shift up into the neck pocket, and wouldn't you know, completely out of tune by like over a half step. I picked it back up after the song, and I don't have this part on video, but I picked it back up after the song, strummed a chord, and had never heard anything so wrong in my entire life. And in that moment, I started panicking. It was my worst nightmare come true on stage. The feeling that I experienced, the panic, the pain, the fright, the self-worth issues that came up while I was retuning between our penultimate and final songs for what felt like 2 minutes was probably, in real time, it was probably 2.5 minutes. It was probably 2.5 minutes that I held up this show. I cannot believe that that happened to me, because I'm usually the guy, you know, reputation being what it is, I'm usually the guy who has foolproof instruments that do not break or go out of tune or experience issues during a song. So that was very humbling. And I'm happy to say that eventually I got close enough. We launched into the last song. It went perfectly without a hitch. That last song is called Ladylike, and it's got one of the coolest, most off-kilter riffs I've ever learned, and we nailed it. We absolutely killed it. It was incredible to play that live. I felt so accomplished. And what's great about live music is that you and the audience, communal experience, you're all in it together. You get past the horribly awkward 2.5 minutes of tuning that takes up everybody's good time, and you play a song, You knock it out. It's the best song you ever played, the best song they ever heard. Everyone forgets about that. I don't think anybody's gonna remember my little problem. Nobody except for me. But I tell you this story as a way to say, hey, if you're like me, you're playing your first show in a long time, you don't remember how it all goes. Where are the drink tickets? Where's the bathroom? Where do I set up? Do we backline our gear? What happens? Is our drummer using their kit or are they using ours? Like, what's the deal? If you're in the position where you're playing a show for the first time after so long, I issue this video as a tale of caution and remembrance. Remember that you gotta ask some questions. You gotta know the details. You gotta know your songs, gotta know your gear, and then you'll be good, I think. I don't know. We'll see how this second one goes and what I remember during that one. But I hope that this video was fun and informative and sobering, as it was for me to recount these things. But I just wanna say, the music is the best thing about being alive. And there are many good things about being alive, but for me, nothing hits me harder than live music, than playing it, than seeing it, than experiencing it. The feeling of a room full of people facing the stage and all of us experiencing something that is purely in the moment. The feeling of being hit in the back by sound waves, by an amp running at volume, just filling the room, shaking my hair. I miss the feeling of a guitar and an amp and a distortion pedal working together and being a little bit too lively, being on the edge of feedback, the edge of breakup, the edge of chaos. Like, anything can happen during a show. And whether you see it as good or bad, it's vital. And I have missed that so deeply. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, coming back to the channel again and again, liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing, doing all that good stuff that YouTube really wants to be done. This is the only way it works. But in the meantime, I hope you're taking care of yourselves and each other. I hope that you're having fun with music, fun with guitars, fun with volume, loud drummers, concrete boxes, all of the above. Listen to Divorce Care. It's incredible stuff. And if you don't mind, wear a mask at shows. It feels really good to be able to do this again, but also it's a gamble. Every time we do it, might catch a thing. Don't really want to catch a thing. How do I end? I don't remember how I do it. Did I just say, hi, I'm Mike and I'm going? I'm leaving? I'm done here?
We'll see you in the next video.
Oh, cut that. So all of that to say, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.